The Federal Reserve rocked markets this week after signaling it would continue hiking rates until and through 2023. The unrelenting pace of rate hikes and the state of inflation in the U.S. is where we find Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman with this week's Bidenomics. Rick?
Hey, guys. Do you remember when Donald Trump used to bash the crap out of the Fed when it raised rates like a quarter of a point or a half a point, and it did that for only a couple of months? Well, President Biden must be feeling that way because things were looking really good on Tuesday when we got that inflation report. It fell by more than expected, and there are other signs that it's going to keep falling. And then the Fed came out and said, nah, we're not impressed. Everybody knew they were going to hike by half a point, which they did. But then Powell, the chairman, he basically said, we're just going to keep at it. And, the market after that just interpreted the Fed as saying, we're just going to drive this economy into the ground if that's what it takes to get inflation under control. So, we're beleaguered with a grumpy Fed right now, which is why we're selling this big sell-off in markets. I mean, markets loved the inflation news on Tuesday because they thought the Fed might be able to ease up a little bit. But the Fed came in hot and said, nope, we're not easing up. So, this increases the likelihood that we will get into a recession in 23 and that it might end up being worse, maybe a moderate recession instead of a mild one. So President Biden is not saying anything about this, but he's got to be feeling that the Fed might be overdoing it a little bit.
Rick, you're on fire today, so you're going to get another question from me. I think you're also watching that government spending bill.
Yeah, so there's now this temporary spending bill that looks like it's going to pass. It's just going to cover spending for a week. But that's good news because it does look like there's agreement that there will be a longer-term spending bill that Congress is going to pass before it leaves for Christmas break. Now, anything could still go wrong, but the interesting battle here is some Republicans don't want a long-term spending bill. They want a short-term bill because they will take over the House in January, and they think that if they can push off spending decisions into next year, well, then the Republicans will get a much bigger say. But there are some other Republicans, including Mitch McConnell in the Senate, who say, no, let's just get the most of the spending covered for 2023. Then we can talk about other Republican priorities next year. So it does look like we probably will get a longer term spending deal next year, which just means it's not a government shutdown is not something we're going to have to worry about. Let's hope it goes that way.
Rick, you saw our last segment. I hear you're a Red Lobster guy too, right?
You guys got me talking about Olive Garden. You guys got me really thinking about Red Lobster, which was my first job, real job in high school. I was a dishwasher at Red Lobster. And when you see one of those restaurants from the inside, you think about it a little differently, Saz. I'll just leave it at that. When you start talking about cheap shrimp, I think about that uneaten shrimp coming through the conveyor belt into the dishwasher shack at Red Lobster. It's a little different from the image you have of the gleaming shrimp on the Olive Garden website.
Rick, can we still be bullish on the Cheddar Bay biscuits, though?
Sure.
Okay,
go for
great.
the biscuits.
Rick, you're a true American.
It's that seafood that makes me queasy.
Rick, you're a true American success story. You should send your story into the administration. Rick Newman, always good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.